Looking at your mirror checks when you're on driving lesson with your instructor, can you say with absolute confidence and conviction, I always know what's happening around me, check my mirrors and act on what I see? Well, obviously not, because 6 out of 10 reasons for failure are lack of use of mirrors or acting on what you see. Now the question is, why is it so difficult to check your mirrors? I mean, does a neck brace suddenly appear, prevent you from turning your head? Does your elaborate hairstyle stop you looking around at your blind spot? I think what happens is there's no physical consequence of not checking your mirror until it's too late. And you can't say, oh, that's the 3rd motorcyclist I've knocked over today. I must remember to check my mirrors in future, because that's not going to happen. Your instructor is going to prevent that from happening, so you can never learn from a mistake. Now, all you've got to do is remember to check your mirrors before signalling, changing direction and changing speed. It's as simple as that. But the question is, how would you live with yourself every day if you had to say to somebody, I'm sorry your child's dead, I just forgot to check my blind spot. I didn't really mean to do it, but you have got to live with the consequences of that for the rest of your life. Now, what I want to do now is look at perspective. How many times have you had a driving lesson and then spoken to your mates, friends at college or whatever and said, oh God, it was an awful lesson, I stalled 4 times. You must have done that. Or, oh, it's a great lesson, I only stalled once. So you place such a big emphasis on stalling. How many times do you say to your friends though, oh, I had a brilliant lesson, do you know what, I didn't miss a single blind spot. I can guarantee there's hardly any pupils out there that are going to say that. So why do you place more emphasis on stalling than a missed mirror check? Now, I'm not saying that stalling is a good thing, you don't want to. It can be embarrassing, you can hold people up, especially if it's a busy junction. But generally, the consequences of stalling are not that significant. Whereas missing a mirror check, somebody could die. So what I want you to do is really, really think about the consequences of mirrors, blind spots, correct observation, and looking around what's happening. If you can take one thing away from this section, it's to promise yourself that never again are you going to miss a mirror check, and you'll always be aware of what's happening around you. Just remember, a car is potentially a lethal weapon. It takes less than a second to check those mirrors, but if you don't, you could be living with the consequences of your actions for the rest of your life if you cause a fatal accident. Now, when you look at the top 10 reasons for failure, very surprisingly, the physical ability to drive doesn't actually rate very highly. Only moving away under control and steering control actually feature in the top 10. You've probably realised by now throughout this DVD that the physical act of driving is actually the easy part. It's the thinking behind it that's the difficult part. Remember, if you can drive well on lesson, then you have the same physical ability to drive on test. You just might think that you can't because of the nerves. So what can you do is, if you can drive normally on your lesson, but as soon as you come to the test, your nerves take over and you get the better of you. What we will find is all the stress-busting techniques in this DVD are going to help combat those nerves. Now, your driving instructor shouldn't actually let you go for your test until you're ready for it, basically, because you'll be wasting your money, you'll have the disappointment of failure, and it's also not good for your instructor's reputation. So you need to trust your driving instructor's judgment. When you look at the top 10, only clutch control and steering feature in this list. And I've got to be harsh here and say, if you can't steer accurately and your clutch control isn't good enough, then actually you're not really ready for your driving test. So it's important to know that you're physically ready for your test. If you are, then the stress-busting section will help you to be mentally prepared and ready.